It's impossible to time the stock market perfectly, but when the prices are falling and everyone is pulling out of it because of their fear, it's usually a good time to get in and buy some value stocks for cheap.
I love it when the things we buy go down. I get euphoric. Then stocks are down today and I'm buying more of something I was buying yesterday. I'm buying it cheaper. Now, when you go to the grocery store and you buy something cheaper than you bought it the day before, you think that's terrific. But people with their stocks, they think that the stock knows more than they do. When the stock goes down, they say the stock is telling them something, and what's telling me is I can get more for my money.
In this video, I will explain the top 5 reasons why people are blocked on their way to success. Plus, I will show you exactly how to get ready when it's time to jump into the stock market and make some money. Unlike others, I will not create a fear moment and lie to you that this is the only time to get rich. But it's undeniable that the more the prices in the stock markets are dropping, the more interesting it will get for you. The first problem I see when I talk to people is they invest money they can't afford to lose. And I was no different. I worked hard to put some money aside. But when it came to spending it, I was careless. I didn't think much about investing. I was just a massive consumer. And of course, like everyone else, I thought once upon a time, well, let me buy this stock I read about, or let me buy this crypto coin I saw on Reddit just a few moments ago. And that, although I couldn't afford to lose the money. Suddenly breaking bad news, one wrong tweet from Elon Musk and all of my aspirations were gone. Suddenly I started panicking, sold my assets for cheaper than I bought them actually, so I was taking up losses. This led me thinking that investing may not even worth my time. But if I had to be real to my former self, I would tell him it's not that investing is not worth it, it's just that my approach is crap. I was just like gambling, overspending, impulse buying, and just hoping for the best. Of course, that's the wrong approach, but when you look at some results in a survey that was recently made, you can see that almost 74% of people act the same way. Because they reported themselves that they are overspending. And if you're overspending and can't really afford the money to lose that you invest in the stock market, you'll panic much easier. On top of that, another survey that was made in Britain found that half of the people who participated in that survey reported that they were impulse buying. And 67% of that people reported afterwards that they regretted their investment decisions. So this means every 2 out of 3 people regrets their investment decisions because they're impulse buying. If you had to make a guess, what would you think that the top 3 reasons for people are to make impulse buying decisions on investings? Well, it was found that social media was making the top of the list, followed by family and friends, and the third position was fear of missing out. And it's so easy for me to relate to that because I was not different. I was the exact same way. And this brings us to the next problem I want to talk about in this video. People act like they understand something, although they really didn't. Because I recognized every time when I talked to people and asked 2 to 3 detailed questions, they couldn't really answer it. They were getting uncomfortable with the situation. Now let's just be real. Just because you see something online another guy is talking about, or you hear your friends that make an investment decision, that doesn't make you an expert. We have to stop justifying bad decisions. Because I know a lot of people who pretend like they know everything what they are doing, but matter of fact they are failing. One prime example for that is the trend in artificial intelligence, AI. You know AI, right? But if you look at the core of AI, then it's so technical and it goes so deep that only engineers should talk about that topic. But now if you think yourself, I asked the question, you know AI, right? With a cool tone. Did you think just for a second that, yeah, of course, I know AI. If you are mature enough to admit it in that exact moment, then you've already made a step. Because you can walk literally outside. Just stop a random person who's walking down the road and ask them about AI. They will probably say, yes, AI is the future, it's coming. And maybe they are even invested in it. But what most of the people forget is we already had a similar trend to that, which was the internet, the Dotcom Bubble. It is perfectly described with this chart you see at the moment. At the lowest point around 2003 and 2004, you can see that they have lost 82.9% of their former valuation. Still in 2016 they were down 2.67%. Just assuming that someone in the 2000s jumped the hype train and invested in the internet. They were still losing on their money 16 years later. And to make it worse, they had to deal with the risks of inflation. Plus, there's literally no guarantee that you will live for another 16 years. And that's exactly what I want to talk about next. The third reason I see people struggle a lot in the stock market is they set the wrong expectations. They think just because they've put down money in the stock market that they will be automatically millionaires. If you take a look again at the same graphic from a few seconds ago, everyone will agree that you usually want to buy at the lowest point and sell at the highest high, right? But now just put yourself in the situation of a guy in 2003 or 2004, whilst everyone is pulling out. Everyone needs an extra dollar for survival, to pay the rent, to pay their car loans or something like that. What do you think for yourself? Would you have made the step and go in? Probably you wouldn't, because you wouldn't have any money aside and you wouldn't risk it to lose even more. I will explain exactly what are the top 5 reasons why people lose in the stock market and build up your confidence so you can go in when it's time for you. In the sources you can see at the moment, it's underlined that people have the wrong expectations in their investments and are therefore disappointed. And to be honest, the stock market has a lot of losers, but did you ever hear a friend or a colleague talk about their losses? Probably you haven't, because no one will admit that they did make a mistake down the line. Maybe it's out of shame. So basically everyone in your friend group or in your circle is trying to convince others, which brings me to my next point. The fourth problem I see all the time is that people love to tell stories which are not that accurate. My best example for that is a friend of mine who claimed all the time that he'd be very successful with his investments in the stock market. He bragged about day trading, leveraging trades and making so much money that he called me even dumb for working from 9 to 5 because he made my salary in a week, he told me. So in our whole conversation, he tried to convince me of his trades, but I was not even arguing with him. At that moment I realized something. He tried to justify his actions, so he tried to get me nodding, yes, you're right, I should do the same, because he was just trying to cover up his losses. Because just 2 weeks later, I saw him in a random cafe having a mental breakdown. I sat next to him and he showed me his investment portfolio. He just had one single good trade over the last 2 months. So what did he do? He thought he finally solved the code, put even more money into it and lost it all. This type of investing is like gambling and it's very addictive. So be very cautious when people talk to you like that and they are trying to convince you from something. Usually they're not in a good position. And funny enough, Charlie Sheen found himself exactly in the same situation when he talked to Joe Rogan in a podcast about his experience. Take a look at it.
I think he was just trying to give me a pep talk. He was like, "Hey man, just know that guys like us, we're not like everybody else. We're different, man. We got tiger blood running through our veins. We got Adonis DNA. We got, we don't know how to lose, man, because we're always winning, right?" So I hear all this, and he's probably thinking, "Cool, man, I just kind of inspired him, maybe just to get to the next moment."
Yeah.
That stuff went in there, man.
If you're able to pay attention in that exact moment, you are able to take a step back, assess the situation, and then do the right thing. The fifth problem I see when I talk to people is they really don't have enough money to invest. And we see that everywhere, with rising prices in gas, rent, groceries, war news, stock market crash, inflation. Matter of fact, in my own experience, if you start an investment journey, you should stand on secure financials. And from my point of view, saving or investing in the stock market is not the only way to do that. I see saving or investing in the stock market as an additional way to build up money. But if you had to be honest, investing is probably the most easy way to build up some extra money. It can be either in the stock market or precious metals like gold and silver pretty recently. If I think back, I would say gold and silver were not so famous globally 4 to 5 years ago. But especially in economies that were not that stable and where the national currency was in danger and in high risk because it was losing in value, most of the people were buying gold and silver. A pretty good example for that is Turkey. Turkey is ranked 7th when it comes to inflation in 2026. And the only safe haven for the people is to store their money in gold and silver. So just for you to understand, we talk about 311 billion US dollars in value in gold. That's owned by just random households in Turkey. Can you really blame the people to do so? Probably you can't, because when money is losing value and you don't want to lose value because you don't believe in printed paper, of course you would back it up with precious metals, right? Because at the end of the day, everyone is responsible for their own survival. But from my point of view, still saving money in gold and silver is not enough. You need more income. So first of all, before you start investing, you need more income. Whether it's through a second job that you would take, or that you do some gig jobs, or you start your own side hustle. Because our situation probably will not get any better. It will get probably even worse. Rising prices in gas, rising prices in rent, food, water. These are all limited resources. So if you really want to escape these 5 problems and find solutions for it, let's start now with that. So I will try to explain to you for each problem a solution. To not overload this video much more, I will try to keep it as short as possible and just tell you some quick fixes. But if you find yourself stuck with one problem even deeper, write me down in the comment section. I will happily cover that in one of my upcoming videos. So for you to remember, the 5 problems we talked about were can't afford to lose any money although you are investing in the stock market, acting like you've understood it, and having the wrong expectations, telling inaccurate stories, and 5th, having no money to invest in the stock market. The first problem you can easily solve by fixing your spending habits. I have several videos on this channel how to get your finances straight again. But if I had to tell you my 3 quick fixes for it, how to get your finances straight, it would be don't go for buy now, pay later models. Never take up a credit for consumption. And the third is, and this was a big one for me, start eating home-cooked meal at home. By just applying these 3 simple things, I think you should be fine very fast. The second problem is acting like you've understood it. This is something more complicated, as usually no one will admit it to themselves that they didn't understand the topic. People get confused with the fact that education doesn't mean intelligence. For me, being not educated on a topic means that you don't know the rules yet and therefore you can do some mistakes. So my best approach for that would be ask questions even though you think you know the answer already. Because that's the way I learn very well. I get different impressions, I talk to different individuals, and with that get insights in how the market works. Because I have life experience with exchanging myself with another individual. The third problem is having the wrong expectations. Usually it comes from not knowing it any better. Plus you also think that the world owes you something. But there is no such thing as that. You just have to understand that just putting your money into the stock market will not make you a millionaire immediately. I heard a lot of friends of mine complain about the 7% return in the stock market. I always ask them the same question. If you wouldn't have the opportunity to invest into the stock market and get a 7% return on your money, what else would you do? What else could you even think of? Would there be another way that you could even make more money? And that's exactly the point where I get no answers from them. So in order to tackle your expectations management, ask yourself all the time the question, do you have another vehicle that you could use to leverage your money even more? And if you assess the risk to the opportunities, would you then take maybe another path? Or would it be smarter to put your money into the stock market and not go for high returns, but go for safe returns or safer returns? The fourth problem was to tell inaccurate stories. Well, on the one hand, you're damaging your own credibility towards your friends. And on the other hand, and this is probably even worse, you're lying to yourself and therefore you can't be really successful down the line. And I don't say with that be critiquing yourself all the time, because that's also not a good way. I know that from myself as well. Because as of today, I struggle with the situation to critique myself all the time, although I may not be in that worst spot, because that at the end of the day leads to drops in confidence, and therefore I don't get any jobs done and I switch up very fast my strategies, and that's usually not a good thing, because if you start something, if you did assess the situation properly and you decide to walk down a path, then usually you should stick to your first plan. So the quick fix for you is be real, but not too harsh. And now at last we have the problem that you probably don't make enough money to even invest in the stock market. My best advice is, if you are going through a rough time, try to find some extra gig jobs. Because as long as you stay in that same loop from working from 9 to 5 and just consuming the rest of your time and spending your money, you will lose it. You'll lose it to someone who owns a business. And that's how life works. And that's why on this channel, I want to get as many people as possible to start their own business, to become successful, to live financially free. Because I literally see at the moment the full advantages of that. And maybe if some of you get successful, we'll be in the situation to mentor the younger generation. I don't believe in selling courses or something like that. I believe in sharing information, and YouTube as a platform is perfect for education. Of course, you could sell knowledge to some poor kids or something like that, but that's not the way I look at it. It's like a competition, and I love to have good competition, and that's why I'm sharing my insights. Maybe you also do know the concept of open innovation. It's an approach in the Asian countries that is widely used in manufacturing, and that led the Asian countries to become top of the notch globally. They are just sharing information openly, about products where everyone else around the globe would make secrets from that and tell no one else because they want to be successful alone. But those companies usually over there share all of the information, even on the internet. And if another company then uses this to get to the next level, then they're sharing the information so another company can jump on the train and get even better. And this is how Asian companies usually work. If you now want to know how to start your first business, write me down a comment. I would love to read that. I will cover it in one of my upcoming videos, of course. So, as always, thanks for watching. Drop a like and subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye.